Hey there, it's Bobi, aka Paginator, and I'm here today to talk about underhyped books. So we're going to talk about 10 books that I feel have not been hyped to the level matching the quality of the read. Or maybe they're just underhyped in general, and that maybe haven't got as much hype as they should, or that at least that I've seen. If you're watching this video and you go, well, actually that book got a lot of hype on such and such place, congratulations. I didn't see it there. We're starting with book number 1, The Bird and the Blade by Megan Bannon. This is a book that came to me a while ago in a book subscription box, and it came with like little author annotations. It was from the Page Habit book. I think that company actually shut down, if I remember right. I might be thinking of another one. For each one of these, I'm going to read the dust jacket and then tell you my thoughts on them. So, in The Bird and the Blade, we see, as a slave in Kipchak Khanate, Jingwa has lost everything: her home, her family, her freedom, until the kingdom is conquered by enemy forces and she finds herself an unlikely conspirator in the escape of Prince Khalaf and his irascible father across the vast Mongol Empire. On the run with adversaries on all sides, an endless journey ahead, Jingwa hatches a scheme to use Kipchak's exile to return home, a plan that becomes increasingly fraught as her feelings for Khalaf evolve into an impossible love. Now, I remember when I was reading this book, like, when we first meet Khalaf, I was like, he's not, like, as terrible as he's been, like, described as. I wonder if this is going somewhere. And it was such a pleasure to watch, like, their relationship evolve and develop. Let's keep reading, though. Jingwa's already dicey prospects take a downward turn when Khalaf seeks to restore his kingdom by forging a marriage alliance with Turandot, the daughter of the great Khan. Now, here we get a name, Turandot. This is a name that, if you're an opera fan, you might be familiar with. There is an opera by Puccini, I believe, called Turandot, and it is a story about a woman who has promised to never marry, or I think never marry. Anyway, she ends up falling in love with someone. So this is involving or mingling with the story that's the basis for that opera. As beautiful as she is, cunning Turandot requires all potential suitors to solve 3 impossible riddles to win her hand, and if they fail, they die. Oh yes, now I'm remembering, in the opera, they have to solve the riddles in order to try to win her hand. That's what it is. Anyway, Jingwa has kept her own counsel well, but with Khalaf's kingdom and his very life on the line, she must reconcile the hard truth of her past with her love for a boy who has no idea what she's capable of, even if it means losing him to the girl who'd sooner take his life than his heart. Alright, so it's been a while since I read this, but every time I see it sitting on my shelves, I smile, because I remember how much I loved it. It was, again, a joy to watch the relationship between the two characters, Jingwa and Khalaf, develop, but also bringing in the elements from the story of Turandot and, like, thinking about the opera. Like, that was the first opera that I ever saw in the theater, was Turandot. And so that just has a sentimental place in my heart. So I don't know if that plays into why I liked this so much, but I highly recommend it. Again, it is The Bird and the Blade by Megan Bannon. Book number 2 is Alex Approximately by Jen Bennett. Alex Approximately is involving a hate to love / online, like a little bit kind of like You've Got Mail situation. So this says, the one guy Bailey Rydell can't stand is actually the boy of her dreams. She just doesn't know it yet. Classic movie fan Bailey Mink Rydell has spent months crushing on a witty film geek she only knows online as Alex. Two co-separate the teens until Bailey moves in with her dad, who lives in the same California surfing town as her online crush. Faced with doubts, what if he's a creep in real life or worse, Bailey doesn't tell Alex she's moved to his hometown, or that she's landed a job at the local tourist trap museum, or that she's being heckled daily by the irritatingly hot museum security guard Porter Roth, aka her new arch nemesis. But life is a whole lot messier than in the movies, especially when Bailey discovers those tricky fine lines dividing hate, love, and whatever it is she's starting to feel for Porter. As the summer months go by, Bailey must choose whether to cling to a dreamy online fantasy in Alex or take a risk on an imperfect reality with Porter. The choice is both simpler and more complicated than she realizes, because Porter Roth is hiding a secret of his own Porter is Alex, approximately. Alright, so there's a little bit of like, is the person I'm talking to online like really everything I think they are kind of a thing. It was just a fun, like, summertime romance story. Really enjoyed it. Alex Approximately by Jen Bennett. Book number 3 is Stepsister by Jennifer Donnelly. This one, again, is one that I read quite a few years ago. It is a take on Cinderella, but from the point of view of one of the stepsisters. Her name is Isabel. And this tells us Isabel should be blissfully happy. She's about to win the handsome prince, except Isabel isn't the beautiful girl who lost the glass slipper and captured the prince's heart. She's the ugly stepsister who cut off her toes to fit into Cinderella's shoe, which is now filled with blood. Yuck. When the prince discovers Isabel's deception, she's turned away in shame. It's no more than she deserves. She cut away pieces of herself in order to become in order to become pretty. She was already pretty. Sweet. More like Cinderella, but that only made her mean, jealous, and hollow. Now she has a chance to alter her destiny and prove what ugly stepsisters have always known. It takes more than heartache to break a girl. Evoking the darker original version of the Cinderella story, Stepsister shows us that ugly is in the eye of the beholder, and uses Jennifer Donnelly's trademark wit and wisdom to send an overlooked character on a journey toward empowerment, redemption, and a new definition of beauty. So this mentions the darker original version. I can't remember if the Brothers Grimm version of Cinderella came before the Charles Perrault version, or if they were kind of contemporaries of each other. But anyway, definitely inspired by the Brothers Grimm version, because as it mentioned, she cut off her toe to fit into the shoe. That actually happened in the Brothers Grimm version of Cinderella. Gross. Also in that version, the stepsisters get their eyes pecked out by birds. Weird stuff happens. In this book, Jennifer Donnelly, who is an amazing, amazing writer, I highly recommend looking up every book that she's ever written and reading it. They're also really good audiobooks as well. But Jennifer Donnelly takes this and, like, she really goes dark here. Is very moody and atmospheric, but also so good. I remember right after reading it, I was going shopping with a friend of mine, and she said, "What book should I pick? You tell me one book and I'll pick and read it." And I immediately said Stepsister by Jennifer Donnelly. I loved it. Book number 4 is How Moon Fuentes Fell in Love with the Universe by Raquel Vasquez Gilliland. This one I would probably give to older readers. It is definitely one that would have a better spot in like a high school library than a middle school for sure. But here is what this tells us. When her twin sister reached social media stardom, Moon Fuentes accepted her fate as the ugly, unwanted sister hidden in the background, destined to be nothing more than her sister's camera woman. But this summer, Moon also takes a job as the merch girl on a tour bus full of beautiful influencers, and her fate begins to shift in the best way possible. Most notable, of course, is her bunkmate and new nemesis, Santiago Phillips, who is grumpy, combative, and also the hottest guy Moon has ever seen. Moon is certain she hates Santiago, and certainly he hates her back, but as chance and destiny, and maybe probably close proximity, bring the two of them into each other's perpetual paths, Moon starts to wonder if that's really true. She even starts to question her destiny as the unnoticed, unloved wallflower she always thought she was. So, summertime road trip kind of thing with a bus full of influencers, or like caravan full. The relationship between these two characters is fire, and we also, like, Moon is just such a great character. She's an artist. She creates her own tarot cards, and, like, there's so many things that she's good at and totally underappreciated because she's just kind of seen as the help with her famous sister. Very, very, very worth your time. It was a bit emotional for me to read, mostly because we're dealing with a plus-size girl, and like she's been treated badly because of her size, which many of us can relate to, I feel. Anyway, yes, read this book, How Moon Fuentes Fell in Love with the Universe by Raquel Vasquez Gilliland. Book number 5 is The Henna Wars by Adiba Jaigirdar. I probably said that wrong. This is an LGBT title. It is about a girl named Nishat. This one, the girls like the main character's feelings and emotions that she went through really have stayed with me, and I kind of like, when I see this one on the shelf, my heart goes a little, oh, because I remember what a hard time she had. Nishat's parents say she can be anyone she wants as long as she isn't a lesbian. Nishat doesn't want to lose her family, but she also doesn't want to hide who she is, and it only gets harder once a childhood friend walks back into her life. Flavia is beautiful and charismatic, and Nishat falls for her instantly, but when a school competition invites students to create their own businesses, both Flavia and Nishat decide to showcase their talent as henna artists. In a fight to prove who is the best, their lives become more tangled, but Nishat can't quite get rid of her crush, especially since Flavia seems to like her back. As the competition heats up, Nishat has a decision to make: stay in the closet for her family, or put aside her differences with Flavia and give their relationship a chance. This was really cute, and they do discuss like ideas of cultural appropriation, and is it okay for people who aren't East Indian to do henna on their hands and that kind of thing. And so there's some social issues at play here as well, but mostly it's just a kind of cute love story mixed in with like the fear of not being approved of by your family because of who you love. Book number 6 is The Truth Project by Dante Medina. This is another one that has some family drama in it. This is a verse novel, so you can read it quite quickly. And I'm going to tell you that the main character here gets herself into some sticky situations that are like kind of terrifying from the point of view of an adult who helps to look after teenagers. So Cordelia is 17. This says Cordelia Koenig is sure of many things going into her last year of high school. For one, she isn't going to stress over the senior project all her peers are dreading. She'll just use the same Find Your Roots genealogy idea that her older sister used for hers. Secondly, she'll put all that time spent not worrying about the project toward getting reacquainted with former best friend and longtime crush Kodiak Jones. Isn't that a great name? Kodiak Jones. Who conveniently gets assigned as Cordelia's partner. All she has to do is mail in her DNA sample, write about her ancestry results, and breeze through the rest of senior year. Done, done, done. But when Cordelia's gene quest results reveal that her father is not the man she thought he was, but a stranger who lives thousands of miles away, Cordelia realizes she isn't sure of anything anymore. Not the mother who lied, the life she was born into, or the girl staring back at her in the mirror. So she is all kinds of messed up in the head. She's not sure what's true, what's not, and she puts herself in some dangerous positions trying to meet this other person that's supposedly her biological father, as well as deal with some friendship and other family drama. Again, it's a verse novel, so you can read it quickly. Very, very heavy hitting. This is another one that I would give to high schoolers or older. Again, The Truth Project by Dante Medina. Book number 7, Scream All Night by Derek Millman. This book, every time I see it sitting on the shelves, it makes me think about root beer. Would you like to know why? I'll tell you why. This book came in a subscription box. I believe it was Once Upon a Book Club box, back when I was doing all those different kinds of subscription boxes. And it came with this candle. Moldavia Studios Scream All Night. It is a root beer scented candle. I only burned it one time. I was too afraid that I would just burn it all up and then wouldn't have it anymore. So I just keep it as a shelf decoration. Oh, it smells like homemade root beer, not like A&W root beer or like whatever brands. It just smells like the root beer that is homemade that we used to make for our Halloween parties when I was a kid. My great aunt Reva had this massive root beer barrel, I don't even know how many gallons it took. And I remember we always had to go buy dry ice from the grocery store to put in there, so it would be like foaming out, like the little mist coming out of the top of the root beer barrel. And there was this hook with a hose on it, and you'd pick up the hook and pour out some root beer. And it was, gosh, it's probably been years since I've had homemade root beer, but memories. Anyway, let's talk about the book. So if you're not quite ready for spooky season to be over, or you just love the idea of monster movies, then you might like this book. Dario Hayward knows one thing. He's never going back to Moldavia Studios, the iconic castle that served as the set, studio, and home to the cast and crew of dozens of cult classic B-horror movies. It's been 3 years since Dario's even seen the place after getting legally emancipated from his father, the infamous director of Moldavia's creature features. But then Dario's brother invites him home to a mysterious ceremony involving his father and a tribute to his first film, The Curse of the Mummy's Tongue. Dario swears his homecoming will be a one-time visit, a way for him to get closure on his past and reunite with Haley, his first love and co-star of Zombie Children of the Harvest Sun, a production fraught with real-life tragedy, and say goodbye for good. But then the unthinkable happens. Dario gets sucked back into the twisted world of Moldavia, and the horrors, both real and imagined, he's left there. With only months to rescue the sinking studio and everyone who's built their lives there, Dario must confront the demons of his past and the uncertainties of his future. But can he escape the place that's haunted him his whole life? This book is funny. It's like dark humor, but it is really funny. And like you get caught up in the vibe of making these creature feature like B-movie horror movies, and it's so much fun. But there is like kind of that heartfelt piece of like his estranged relationship with his father and like what went wrong there and trying to deal with that, in addition to saving the studios, because it turns out it really did mean something to him, all that time spent there. So Scream All Night by Derek Millman. Book number 8 is Notes from My Captivity by Kathy Parks. This is another one that I discovered through a subscription box. Imagine that. I think we're sensing a trend here. This is about a girl who ends up being taken captive by some really weird people. So Adrian, is our main character. It says Adrian Cahill cares about 3 things: getting into a great college, becoming a revered journalist like her idol Sidney Declay, and making her late father proud of her. So when Adrian is offered the chance to write an article that could get her into her dream school and debunk her foolishly optimistic stepfather's belief that a legendary family of hermits is living in the Siberian wilderness, there's no question that she's going to fly across the world. After all, it's a trip of a lifetime. Like, her father, or stepfather, he believed this family of hermits was living out in the wilderness, like, to the core of his being. Like, he was super obsessed about it. So she wants to go and debunk it and prove, no. And so she thinks that's going to for sure get her into her journalism program. Let's see, but the Russian terrain is even less forgiving than Adrian, and when disaster strikes, nothing, not the flirtatious guide or her stepdad's obsessively detailed preparations, can protect Adrian from the sheer force of nature. Now she's being held captive by the family she was convinced didn't exist, and her best hope for escape is to act like she cares about befriending them, even if it means wooing the youngest son. So we have a little bit of, faking Stockholm Syndrome, if that's a thing. Like, she's gonna try to, form a bond with her captors, especially the youngest son, who seems to be quite interested in her and quite captivated by her. This book, I still think about, how much it just pulled at my heartstrings. I was just going, oh my goodness, just frequently as I read. It was so good. This is one of those books that just stayed with me for a long time. And once again, that's Notes from My Captivity by Kathy Parks. Books 9 and 10 are kind of related to one another, and you shall see why. Book number 9 is Man-Made Boy by John Scovran. The tagline is, "A boy among monsters, a monster among people, a hero above all." And you can see on the cover we've got these little bits that look like they came from a kit where you pop out things and build them together, like a model car kit or something like that. This is a Frankenstein adjacent kind of book. Growing up can be a real monster. 17-year-old boy has never left home. When you're the son of Frankenstein's monster and the bride, it's tough to go out in public unless you want to draw the attention of a torch-wielding mob. But when he's on his computer, boy is a hacker extraordinaire who can hide his hulking body and stitch together face behind a layer of code. When conflict erupts at home, Boy runs away and embarks on a cross-country road trip with the granddaughters of Jekyll and Hyde, who introduce him to malls and diners, love and heartbreak. But no matter how far Boy runs, he can't escape his demons, both literal and figurative, until he faces his family once more. So when I read this, I tore through it. I didn't think I was going to love it as much as I did. I was like, whoa, where did you come from? There is a sequel called This Broken Wondrous World, which I have not read yet. I don't know why. But I really, really loved the story of this. I thought it was like fresh, unique take on what it would be like to be so isolated from the world, and especially if you're the child of like fictional legends. Complicated further, right? But again, very enjoyable read. The action moved quickly. I went through it quickly and enjoyed every minute of it. So that is Man-Made Boy by John Scovron. And book number 10 is by Kirsten White, The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein. I feel like this has not been hyped nearly as much as some of Kirsten White's other books. So that's why this one's on this list. Plus, I just freaking loved it. So, another Frankenstein adjacent book. This one is very moody and atmospheric, which, you know, yes, please. Elizabeth Lavenza hasn't had a proper meal in weeks. Her thin arms are covered with bruises from her caregiver, and she's on the verge of being thrown into the streets until she's brought to the home of Victor Frankenstein, an unsmiling, solitary boy who has everything except a friend. Victor is her escape from misery. Elizabeth does everything she can to make herself indispensable, and it works. She's taken in by the Frankenstein family and rewarded with a warm bed, delicious food, and dresses of the finest silk. Soon she and Victor are inseparable, but her new life comes at a price. As the years pass, Elizabeth's survival depends on managing Victor's dangerous temper and indulging his every whim, no matter how depraved. Behind her blue eyes and sweet smile lies the calculating heart of a girl determined to stay alive no matter the cost, as the world she knows is consumed by darkness. So one of the blurbs on this is from Mackenzie Lee, who wrote The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, as well as other things, and she says, Mary Shelley would be proud. I wholeheartedly agree. Victoria Schwab blurbed this as scalpel sharp. Also agree. This book was, again, another one who I was like, did not expect to like as much as I did, and it is disturbing in like the best way. It's horror, but it's also like the drama of one's relationships, and what do you do when the person that you thought you knew better than anyone else turns out to be completely different, and what if they're also like a monster? What do you do? Again, I highly recommend this book, The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White. Okay, so that has been 10 books that I feel like are underhyped, but definitely worth your read. I hope that you'll find something there that is inspiring for you to check out and give it a try. And in the meantime, have a wonderful, magical, and bookish day. Happy reading. Adios.